know what you're investing in. So we're going to transform unconscious investments into intentional decisions. That is what we're aiming for. It is the number one thing that will help you reduce information overwhelm and help you grow your business better. Welcome. My name is Mary. I am the Chief Technology Therapist, as I say, here at Sensible Woo. And I am a real life librarian. So some of you know me from National Library Week at the beginning of the year. And I love to talk about how to reduce information overwhelm. I'm also a digital archivist. I'm a technologist by trade. And I love this in-between space between technology and the emotional side of doing great things in this world. And I feel like there's a bridge that can be built. And for some reason, I know that bridge very well, and I'm able to show people how to walk across it. So I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. If you have never been around Sensible Woo before, just know that my email door is always open. You can send me an email there at hello@sensiblewoo.com. So you can take a screenshot of this if you like. Send me questions at any time. And I am always happy to point you in the right direction if there's a resource that I can find for you. And then today, sharing is caring, right? So if you share this broadcast with your friends, that's awesome. I would also love it if you connect with me on Instagram. You can find me at Sensible Woo. That's my handle. And if you learn something that's really, really cool here today, I'd love for you to take a screenshot and share it on Instagram, tag it with the hashtag digital feng shui. That way I can find you and we can continue the conversation over there as well. I have found that the majority of my ideal clients love hanging out on Instagram. So that's where I hang out too. And we have a lot of really fun conversations on there. So I think it's a really fun platform. Hopefully I will see you over there and I will look for your hashtag. All right, so let's talk about the business gym because this is our theme for today, right? So at the business gym, we are developing new and stronger muscles. Just like going to the regular gym when you're exercising your physical body, you know that to see results, it takes consistency and time. The same is true in business. Consistency and time do wonders for growing better systems inside of your business. In the regular gym, when you're trying to achieve some fitness goal, you probably also pay attention to nutrition. And it's very similar here at the business gym. We pay attention to what are we putting into our business? What are we paying attention to? At a regular gym, you might even hire a trainer, right? And the same thing is true in business. We call them coaches or teachers, or we take a workshop, or you attend a live stream like this. Those are all forms of taking a class or hiring a trainer. And in terms of taking a class, there's a big difference between a group class and having a one-on-one trainer. And the same thing is true in your business experience. So it's an important thing to think about. And I find this analogy is really helpful when we're trying to better understand, what is our ultimate goal? What do I have to invest right now? What am I willing to put in? And then you learn new skills and workouts while you're doing that. So here in the business gym, you learn how to use new pieces of software, you learn how to streamline your workflows and so forth. So you're learning new skills and workouts also inside of the business gym. The other thing that I love is just like going to a regular gym when they are open, because I know we're still in a pandemic right now, but you meet friends there, right? I have met many friends at the gym in the past. And over on the business gym side, you meet friends as well. You take workshops and classes, you join a business community, you do networking, but your new friends keep you motivated. There's nothing like saying, I'm going to meet my friend at the gym, and you make sure that you go, right? So the same thing happens in business too. When you have business buddies, they can really help keep you on task. And it's one of the really powerful things that we'll talk about before the end of today. The other thing that the regular gym teaches us is that there are no magic solutions. There's no wishful thinking for that hot body. And the same thing is true with our businesses. There's no wishful thinking when it comes to those revenue goals or the follower count or the reach and engagement that you're having with your audience. There's no magic solutions. It's consistency and time, it's commitment, and it's, making investments in the right ways, whether that's money, time, or energy. So let's take a look at the woo side of going to the business gym. So here at Sensible Woo, I like to say that it's time for us to get grounded. I have a million analogies, but my favorite one is using the chakra system. And if you have not looked at the chakra system recently, I am going to show you how I apply this to our systems here at Sensible Woo. So the main program is to feng shui your bits and bytes. And it's because I took traditional feng shui, I bastardized the heck out of it, and I turned it into digital feng shui because I realized that my best clients were having a really hard time conceptualizing all the bits and bytes inside their computers. And it was really hard for them to really figure out the systems and stay organized and feel less overwhelmed. And it just came down to having some kind of a framework, right? So it's just like going to the gym, right? You go and you have exercises that you do, and you have a number of reps that you do. There's structure around how you achieve a certain goal. And so we do that here with systems and with getting organized and with reducing the overwhelm. Now, I feel like emotions are a huge part of what we do in business, and especially in technology. I don't believe that technology is this robotic Android thing. I feel like it is a very organic thing. And I feel like we have a deep connection to our business's soul, as well as the technology that helps make our businesses run online. And the way that I equate this is through the chakra system. So what I have discovered after having lots of conversations with clients over the years and my own experience as a business owner is that when we feel the urge to bring some offer into the world, right? Right now, the world is going through great change, right? So people are feeling a lot of pull to put out something that's going to help people rise up, help make things more equal. And it's really, really exciting, but it can also get really overwhelming very quickly. And my goal is to help you not give up on that goal. So what happens is that calling comes in through your crown chakra, right on the top of your head, that crown. And what happens is it's kind of like it knocks on the door and it says, hey, I think you're the right person to help me come into the world. And when you acknowledge that, it can be a very exciting experience. It feels like you've had this vision. It feels like you've had this spark. And when you acknowledge that, that energy starts to build immediately. And then it drops down from your crown into your third eye. And in your third eye is where you start actually visualizing and seeing a vision for what it is you're going to bring into the world. And then it gets even more exciting because you're like, I can see a path, I can see an outcome, I can see this ultimate big, beautiful vision of this thing that I want to bring into the world. And then that drops down from your third eye into your throat chakra. And now it's really starting to gain some momentum. So when it hits your throat chakra region, this is when you start being able to put language to this thing that you're feeling and seeing, and you start developing a way to explain it to other people, which then enables them to give you feedback as well. And that's a really powerful thing because they validate your ideas. They show you even more things that are related to this big, beautiful vision. And so the energy and the flow, it just starts growing and growing. And that energy then drops from your throat into your heart chakra. And this is where you really feel everything. You can actually feel that this is the thing. I have to totally do this. Like you just, at this point, you become really attached. The cords begin to form between you and this beautiful idea. And then that energy grows and then it drops down into your solar plexus. And this is when we hit the lower chakras. And this is when things start getting a little tougher. So what I usually find with clients is as the energy goes from the heart down into the solar plexus, they start to hit their mindset issues. The solar plexus chakra, if you are not up on your chakras, is the center of your personal power. And so what happens is that energy hits the solar plexus and you realize, oh man, like, who am I to do this? The imposter syndrome shows up. You start thinking, I don't know, this might be really hard. I don't know if I'm qualified. And as soon as you start working through more of those mindset issues, the energy begins to unclog, it frees up, and then it flows down into your sacral region. The sacral region is the center of your creativity. And this is when you start creating collateral, right? You develop the outline for your course, or you create social media graphics, or you do a live stream, right? You put on a webinar, you do all kinds of stuff. You make a website, but you start creating things. It gets very creative, and it's a very exciting place, but things start getting really, really messy because all of a sudden there's creation everywhere, but not a whole lot of organization. And then all that energy drops down into the root. And the root, just like the name suggests, is where everything is based. It's the grounded source. It's your foundation. In our chakra journey as humans, the root chakra is where we also inherit, our ancestral DNA and all of the belief patterns that we inherit from our parents and lots of family things. It's very visceral, it's very deep, and it will bring up a lot of things that need to be worked on. And so what I find in terms of business is that the energy flows down into the root chakra. And the next thing you know, it's so frustrating because you realize, wow, I have to clean this up. I don't know anything about that, and it requires a lot of gardening work. My other analogy in the root chakra is to think of a beautiful flowering bush or tree, and they all have roots, right? So those roots are really strong. They're in really nourishing soil. And when you're working down in the root chakra, it's kind of like you're on your knees in the garden with your hands in the dirt, and you're really just nurturing that plant so that the plant can soak up nutrients right through the roots. It can soak up all those nutrients. And then all those nutrients then go up through the plant. So now look at your chakras. So it's going up through the root, up through your chakras. All those nutrients are going up to the top. And the energy then can flow back up into the crown where your flower blooms, right? So I feel like when the energy gets worked on in the root chakra is when you really start to work in your business. And sadly, I see a lot of people give up at this point because it is work, but it can also be really enjoyable work. And so I'm hoping today you'll see just how enjoyable it can be. And then it doesn't have to be overwhelming, because if you let that energy then grow in the root chakra, it becomes like this burning fire, and that fuel just shoots the energy back up the chakra system. It hits your crown chakra. And that's the point when you answer your calling. I feel like a lot of people think they answer their calling because they let the idea come in on the first pass, but it's really after you've done the root work that you can really answer your calling. So that's what we're after today. And we're going to then talk about triggers. So triggers really come up when we start doing root work. It totally happens. The best thing to do is to take a step back and breathe. If you're watching the replay, you can hit pause, you can come back. Nothing says that you have to watch a 1-hour live stream all at once. You can totally walk away and come back. And then just like we talked about the root chakra, we want to ground down through the root chakra. It can be really tempting to just run away from that root and say, I just can't handle this right now. But if you can ground down, if you can breathe and ground down into your root and be there for a moment, you might find that there's quite a lot of healing that happens very quickly. And when that happens, your business will start to smooth out, the kinks unfurl, and it just feels so good because you're meant to bring that gift into the world. So I really want to see you be able to do that, and that's what we're going to do today. If you find yourself triggered at any point today, I recommend, again, coming up for air, like this cat, this little kitten here. If you feel like you need to just, kind of hide for a second, take a moment and do what you have to do, but don't bail on it. Please follow it. Make sure that you follow through. The comfort is always found on the other side of the discomfort. And a lot of times it can be easy to stay stuck in systems in our business that are not working because it's what we know, but they're so uncomfortable and they're actually causing more triggers for us in the long run than if we just took a minute, didn't bail on that, did some of that root work so that we could start flowing better. It's just like going to the gym, right? If you've ever had a hard workout and you're like, I don't think I can do one more rep. And your trainer's like, you can, one more rep. And you do it and you get to the other side of the discomfort. And on the next session at the gym, you discover that you can do an extra chin up or an extra push up. Your body is stronger. So this is what we're also doing when we're here at the business gym. All right. The last thing we're going to talk about on the woo-woo side of our talk today is manifestation. So this is really big in the Sensible Woo community. A lot of you who come to me also love to work in the manifestation space, as do I. But one of the things that we learned, just like we talked about having physical fitness goals, you don't get there without taking action, right? So in the business gym, we're talking about mindset and action, and that equals results. So the analogy is, let's say you're sitting on the sofa with your remote in one hand and a pint of Ben & Jerry's in the other, and you're going, I really want to lose 50 pounds, but I'm going to believe it. I'm going to think about it, and I'm just going to manifest it. It's going to totally happen. No, you have to actually take some action. You have to make some changes, and they're probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable for a minute. It also doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect at it. And I think this is one of the things that we get stuck on, is we think we have to be perfect, that we have to check every single box every single time. And the truth is that incremental changes, wildly imperfect as they may be, as long as you're being consistent and you're showing up, then you will see results. So that's what we're talking about when we say do the work. It's also what we're talking about when we say don't skip steps. Because what you're doing is you're making sure that even if you are completely imperfect on one particular day, at least you showed up and you put your energy in the right direction. But you have to take action to also help with the mindset. You can do mindset work till the cows come home, but unless you take action, you won't see results. And the same thing is true in the systems that make our businesses run smoothly online. The other thing that we will be talking about today is emotional readiness. So sometimes we need to take a little time in our chakra system. You need to spend some time in that solar plexus region. We need to spend some time down in the sacral region before we get to the root. And that helps us develop emotional readiness. Sometimes if we try to push ourselves too quickly, it just makes it so hard. So my advice to you today is be kind to yourself. Give yourself some grace, but let's give manifesting a boost. You can do one small thing today, and it will help give your manifestation a big, big boost. So with that, let's talk about actual actions. Let's look at the map that we're going to be dealing with today. We're going to look at 4 parts. We're going to talk about bottlenecks. We're going to talk about workflows. We're going to talk about investing, and we're also going to talk about coaching, because it's actually a really big thing. Even if you have never hired a one-on-one coach before, even if you've been just doing sort of, the free offers that are out there, you are actually still receiving coaching. And it's really important to know what you're receiving so that you can know how you're going to invest, which then informs your workflows and then tells you how to identify things like bottlenecks. So you can kind of see how that chakra flow happens even on the practical side, even just through these 4 parts. All right, let's look at our bottlenecks. So if you've never heard this term before, you might start hearing it more and more as you dig deeper into your business journey. So bottlenecks are just like you see the image of the hourglass here. There's a small point in the middle, and the sand can't, has only a little bit can go through at a time. If you think about like an old Coca-Cola bottle, there's a thin neck, or a wine bottle, it's just a thin neck, right? So only a little bit of liquid pours through at a certain time, bottleneck, okay? It really refers to the flow of progress in your business. And everybody has bottlenecks, every single person. If you talk to someone and they're like, everything's totally fine, it's perfect, it's not true. They have bottlenecks too. And what you do is you deal with bottlenecks when they are impeding the flow of making some goal come to life. And there are always multiple bottlenecks at the same time. But one thing that we tend to do is we tend to skip over the bottleneck that is right in front of us that will open up the flow. And we'll go solve a problem further down the line. And it's not that that problem doesn't deserve to be solved. It's just not the most effective bottleneck at this moment. So we're going to look at it in an image after this slide so that I can explain this a little bit more to you. I find that bottlenecks show up everywhere in our businesses. They usually begin to show up most prominently in the growing phases in the back end of business. You'll see people buy all kinds of software and it's not really solving their problems. And it's because they have some kind of a bottleneck, and buying more tools doesn't necessarily uncork your bottleneck. The bottlenecks are super important because if you don't solve for the right bottleneck at the right time, you will end up moving much slower through business. And what happens is you're investing resources, right? And you'll start burning through your resources. The resource could be money, it could be time, it could be your energy, but basically you're using up resources in a more ineffective fashion. So in order to fix a bottleneck, it just requires, first of all, being able to identify it clearly, being really honest about what it is. So again, root work, right? So we're in our root chakra here. And then it requires us to be very methodical and open and honest about it. So let's look at this little cobbled together drawing that I have for you. So what we're trying to figure out is which one is the biggest bottleneck. You know, you're always going to have a new bottleneck. So in this image, we're going from left to right. So we're starting at the start sign. And this is, pretend these are like water droplets or something. And the flow normally would really be like somebody finds you, they subscribe, they attend your webinar, they purchase something, you deliver a service, and they give you a testimonial. Like that is ultimately the workflow that you would like to see. But you can see the numbers here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we have different points where there are bottlenecks happening. And what happens is you have to determine which one is the biggest bottleneck. It does not necessarily mean just because there's a linear flow from left to right that number one is your first bottleneck. That is not necessarily the case. Let's say that inside of the webinar, between the webinar and the purchase at point number 3, let's say that you actually do get quite a few people on your webinars, and you find that nobody's really taking purchase or taking action. Nobody really purchases anything because the goal for your webinar is that they will purchase something from you. And what it might come down to is that maybe you make an offer, but it's so difficult to get to the offer that they basically have a dropped cart. So that might indicate that maybe there's a way we can streamline that process. That would be the first bottleneck, because if you need more people to purchase to increase your revenue, if you can release that bottleneck, it will allow you to then solve something else that is also important. But that would probably be the first one in this hypothetical example. So let's say I release bottleneck number 3. And then once I have webinar, registrants, they're purchasing and the conversion rate has gone up, maybe I'm discovering that that when they finish the service, like everyone's dropping off. I'm not really getting testimonials. And in order to get the testimonials, it helps me grow social proof, helps find new clients and new customers. And so what I'll do is I'll look at bottleneck number 5. So again, just because there's a linear progression doesn't necessarily mean that the bottlenecks flow in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you're looking at your own situation, you really want to look at what would be the biggest bottleneck, getting really honest with yourself. You're always going to have a new bottleneck once you uncork the one that is most important in front of you. So let's talk about how we can identify that. I like to do it through workflows. Workflows, as many of you know here at Sensible Woo, are a really huge component of the digital feng shui system. We do them on Post-it notes intentionally so that we don't get distracted by the bright, shiny objects of fancy software. And it also does a very subtle trick, which keeps you in your body. By touching a physical object with your fingers, it helps you stay present, helps you stay grounded. And I find that that is a really, really powerful thing. So workflows really, ideally, everyone I think should use workflows. And the sad thing that I find is that a lot of times people don't get to workflows until they're much further along in business. They hire, expensive coaches, and they finally are able to invest in big programs. And I feel like if we can learn workflows sooner rather than later, or even be aware of them, I feel like it will help many beginning business owners on their journey into, increasing their revenue and increasing, their customers and so forth. So workflow, just like you saw on the previous diagram, this can be a workflow. It's totally a workflow. Workflows tend to be very linear, which is nice for our human brains. It makes it a little bit easier for us to compute things, but we can really see the flow of what's happening from start to finish. And I'll show you some more examples after this slide too. So I love creating workflows at any point. I feel like it's really powerful for business owners to create workflows when you know that you are having a slowness in your business, or if you've gone through a major change recently, if you're birthing a new offer, it's a really, really smart time to build a workflow. And if you're bringing on any new team members, for example, if you want to delegate some work off your plate, building a workflow is really, really impactful. Workflows can live in a number of places. So I like building workflows with Post-it notes, and many of my clients also use Post-it notes. Sometimes they'll just put the Post-it notes on butcher paper or art paper and roll it up so they can keep it for later. You can take photos of them. You can transfer them into a digital medium like a presentation or workflow software. But any which way, workflows are most impactful when we take them from the workflow stage into a project management stage so that we can take action, right? Remember, manifesting plus action equals results. So our goal is to really start gaining those results. And the reason why they're so important, again, is just that we really need tools that help us sort out our thoughts. This gets into the information overwhelm that we often feel inside of our businesses. So we're trying to get all of those thoughts out of our head and into something practical that we can then work on and take action on. So the workflows help you sort that out. They help you identify blind spots, and they help you also identify the tools that you need in order to make a vision possible. So if you want clients to go through a particular pipeline, you can actually look at what are all the software and technical tools that I need, or marketing pieces that I need. And you can find out what is the cost of that. You can actually compute the cost of acquisition for your clients. And sometimes you discover that might be not what I can afford right now, or not what I'm willing to invest in right now. And then it allows you to look at your workflow, make adjustments so that the workflow does fit what you can handle. And that can be so incredibly valuable so that you don't go so far down a path that you end up investing in the wrong places at the moment. You're solving for the wrong bottlenecks, and it allows you to solve for the right bottlenecks. So to make a workflow, I'll show you pictures. You can use Post-it notes, which are my favorite. You can even write a simple list, right? You can draw a diagram on the back of a napkin. I've done that before. And sometimes you can start with very basic linear things. Traditionally, things like standard operating procedures or procedure manuals, like you find especially in the corporate world, you find those a lot. They'll have, organizational documents. And that is a great way to start getting your feet wet in workflows. It's also a great thing to do because when you want to delegate some work off your plate, you're going to have some things to hand over to someone, and they'll know exactly what you would like them to do. So that can be a great place to start. Job descriptions are also examples of workflows. So when you look at a job description, it will tell you basically what needs to be done. It might not be the most linear workflow, so it's a little bit different, but it is a workflow. And then on the advanced side, this is where I really like to bring in our Sensible Woo community. I like to use workflows to help us find our bottlenecks. Sometimes it's not so apparent what the bottleneck is. And sometimes there are bottlenecks that are really similar, so we're not really sure what we're solving for first. And so what we can do is workflow it out. and then really take a measured look at where is that real bottleneck? Like, what do I really need to solve for first? And then it'll also help you choose your technology tools. So we use this for doing technology comparisons and for doing inventory, and it's a really powerful tool. I also love using workflows, especially for refining the customer experience. I find that it's really easy for us to get stuck in our expert bubbles and we solve for our needs. But what about our clients' needs? Sometimes we say, oh, I know what my client's experiencing. But what I have discovered 9 times out of 10 with workflow participants at Sensible Woo is that there's always at least one major area that has been unaccounted for in the customer experience. And it becomes this really big aha moment. And sometimes it immediately solves for a bottleneck. So that is why having the workflows can be so important. All right, so let's look at some workflows here. On the left is a picture of a down and dirty workflow that I did with pilot students of my own in 2019 as we were building the big Feng Shui Your Bits and Bytes program. And you can see I use Post-it notes, right? So it's a really easy way to get your thoughts out and to refine it. We use this as a sample so that they could see how many tools would actually be needed for someone's product launch or their offer launch. And it gave us a really good idea of the cost of tools, the labor involved for making that thing happen, and also the the time that it would take for launch. Sometimes we say, I'm going to put that offer out next week. And then when you workflow it out, you realize, if I want this to happen the way I really want it to happen, it's going to take like a month. So doing a workflow can be really helpful in that sense. And then over on the right side of the screen, you see my graphic. This actually comes from my website. And this is a workflow too. I use it for marketing, and it's kind of fun. It's how Woo Are You, basically helping people figure out what kind of service do they want, but it's a workflow. So, workflows can show up in all different forms. But I really wanted to show you 2 very different versions, one very unpolished and one very polished, so that you can see the difference. All right. So now let's talk about investing. So remember, this is one of the 4 pillars that we're talking about today. And a lot of times when we talk about investment, we think about money, but I say money is too obvious. So we're not just going to talk about money. Money is an important resource, and it's not to diminish the value of that. But there are other investments that you make regularly that are really important. Things like your time, your attention and focus, priorities that you put on things, the commitment level you put on things, that is a type of investment. Your energetic output, your energetic exchange with people. Like even right now, we're exchanging energy by me giving you a live stream and you're attending. Even if you attend a replay, just because I'm not talking live to you right now, doesn't mean that you're not getting an energetic exchange. We also invest using our emotions. So remember, emotions are a really big part of the work we do at Sensible Woo. So investing in the blood, sweat, and tears, as we say, like that is a huge investment. And then they could be other precious resources. I have a lot of clients who are parents or who are caretakers, and they have precious resources like, holidays or special events with their loved ones. And, there are investments, there are times when you need to invest in those things instead of investing over in a bottleneck that doesn't need to be fixed right now, right? So when we talk about investment, I really want you to start thinking about, what are you investing in? If you were to workflow out your process, what kind of investment goes into every stage of that process, right? It's not just money. In fact, there are many things that don't have any money involved at all, but you're putting in, a huge energetic output, and maybe the return on investment is not as great as you would like. And in that sense, it's, the question is, okay, well, let's look at the bottlenecks then. Let's figure out how do we make that more in your favor so that you are then getting an equal energy exchange in return. All right. So when we are investing, I like to say there's a bridge between investing and the coaching part, which is getting help. So getting help requires asking for it quite literally. I think it's one of the things we skip over the most. We think, I need help. And you realize, well, you haven't actually asked for help. So sometimes you just need to ask for help. And then recognizing when it's time to get help. Like sometimes we ask for help before we're ready for the help. Like we know it's coming, but we still need to do some of that root work. Nobody can do the root work for you but you. And sometimes we're like, somebody help me do it. But you need to get through it. Kind of like running a marathon. Nobody's going to run that last mile, number 26, but you, right? You can have a running coach, but they're not going to start running it for you. So you've got to recognize when it's time to get the help. And then also grounding your emotions is so important. So remember that chakra work, that root chakra that we're working on, we're grounding our roots into that nice nourishing soil. And then releasing resistances. This can be one of the chief bottlenecks in getting help, getting efficient coaching, is that we'll have resistances to things. And if we can learn to recognize our resistances, we can then start working through our bottlenecks faster. And getting help involves things like expanding into collaboration. So learning that you can't do everything all by yourself. This is one of the things I struggle with, by the way. Just because I can doesn't mean I should. And the same thing is true for you too. So you have to think about, how would I collaborate? You know, maybe I need some business buddies where we get together regularly for a mini mastermind and help each other solve some problems. That's a great way of getting help. And then connecting beyond yourself. So this gets into things like networking, joining programs. So getting out beyond what you know, outside of your bubble. And also maintaining boundaries. This is something I think is super, super important, because when you're getting help from people, you really need to make sure that you are getting it from the right sources, that you are giving the energetic exchange in a way that is impactful for both sides, right? And that's why a lot of times you pay for services, you pay for a class or you pay for coaching, because that is the energetic exchange. But maintaining boundaries is very important, because when you're getting help, you're also giving help, and you just need to make sure that you do it in a healthy way. So when we're talking about coaching, this is the fourth pillar of our foundations for today. We're talking about who's your coach, right? You always have a coach, by the way, and that number one coach is you. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to you. So when we're talking about what kind of investment am I putting in, if your energy is completely depleted, then you can't be the best coach for you, right? You always are going to know your business baby better than any other person. You are the parent to your business baby, and you can get coaching advice from somebody. But if your gut, your intuition tells you that you need to pursue something in a certain way, then you're your number one coach. You have to honor that, right? The other people who can be coaches are business best friends, or biz besties, as I say. These are people who you really trust. It's not everybody. Everybody's not your biz bestie, but you usually have like one or, maybe even, a small handful of them. And they're people who will tell you like it is. They will hold space for you while you absorb that. And they won't hold back on telling you hard things that you need to hear, but they'll really be there for you and support you. They're kind of like the people you meet at the regular gym, right? People you meet, you show up for class, they hold you accountable. Biz besties can be really, really powerful. A working group can also be really powerful. Sometimes it comes from a networking group. Sometimes it's formed out of those biz bestie relationships. But having a working group can also be really useful. Again, it helps with the accountability. And having an outside perspective sometimes can help you identify your bottlenecks faster. You can also have a business coach. But what's a business coach? They're not a life coach, right? They're there for your business. They are also not a therapist. They're there for your business. So a business coach is somebody who can help you fix some kind of bottleneck that you're having, right? This is why identifying your bottleneck is so important, because a lot of times I see people go out and sign up for courses or hire a business coach, and they don't really know why they're hiring that person or signing up for the course, because they haven't identified their bottleneck. So knowing what your business coach is there to do for you can really help you get unstuck faster. It will increase the return on your investments. And then you can also join things like masterminds. But what's a mastermind? The word gets really overused these days. And a mastermind should really be an experience where basically more heads than one are better, right? So you have a group of people who come together, and it has to be small enough where you can actually have discussions. So if it's a group class where there's 50 people on a call, that's not really a mastermind unless they're like breaking you out and actually organizing the space for you. But a mastermind can be formal or informal. It can be something you pay for or something that's free. And in your mastermind, you're really looking again for people kind of like your biz besties, people who you trust, good outside perspective, good objectivity, and people who can help you uncork your business bottlenecks and identify them quicker. So you can also take a course, right? So a course can be like having a coach. And when you take a course or a workshop, it's a way for you to learn some skills, invest in learning something that will help you improve your workflow. And so in that sense, it can be like a broad form of coaching, which can be pretty cool. The other thing that I love with coaching is the self-discovery process. So when you're in self-discovery, I love the process of going down this very organic path. And I think it's one of the things we forget about the most in the coaching process or the coaching journey. We think coaching comes from someone outside of us, but if you're your number one coach, then the self-discovery process is one of the most beautiful processes when it comes to coaching. All right, so before we finish today, we're going to talk about what I call the CEO pants. So in my business bestie group, I have a group we're called the Minis. It's short for Mini Mastermind. We came together because we belonged to a mastermind program together, and we continued to meet offline together to continue supporting each other. And as we were talking, I kept using this term called CEO pants, and they thought it was so funny, but also very apropos. So I'm going to teach it to you here today as well. And CEO pants is the number one thing I find in reducing information overwhelm. So remember, that was one of our final big goals today, was how do we reduce all of that overwhelm when we're trying to figure out what are we putting out into the world, bringing our gifts out into the world. And it basically means being autonomous and being in charge and feeling confident, right? So being empowered to make decisions, which means that you know when to run your own meetings. So just like if you hire a coach, right? You're there, you're the CEO, you're there to run that meeting. So make sure you run your meetings. Don't wait for someone else to do something, right? So if you're looking for a teacher or somebody to tell you, here's all the steps, here's how you do it, that's going to increase your overwhelm. It's also going to slow down the process of you learning your business bottlenecks and making a better workflow and finding better solutions to your problems. So you don't wait for someone else to do it. You put on your CEO pants and you start figuring out, what do I need to do? It also means that you become less scattered by using what I call containers. So one of the things that I love to teach in reducing information overwhelm is creating containers for things. So containers for our project management, containers for our ideas. And when you start using containers for your time management, for example, it can be really impactful as you're wearing your CEO pants. And then we also talk about doing market research. So market research is so important, and it's something that a lot of people who are feeling overwhelmed about their clients are forgetting to do. So when you put on your CEO pants, you're really listening to everybody else. The most effective CEOs that you hear about, case studies, are people who are really good at listening to what's happening in their company, what's happening outside of their company, and they're basically removing themselves. They're taking their ego out of the equation and they're listening. So when we're doing market research, we're really listening to our community. And let's be honest, in this year of 2020, 2020 is teaching us that we need to listen even harder. So people are going through a lot of change right now. And when you're listening regularly with your CEO pants on, you'll discover that the ability to pivot is so much easier because you'll already be listening to your people. You don't have to start a whole new process just to understand, what do I need to do to stay current, relevant, and still show up with great service? CEO pants help you get out of your bubble. Again, just like great CEOs remove their ego out of the equation, you're doing the same thing with this. You're getting outside of your bubble. You're not trying to stay only in your expert space. You're willing to be the beginner again. You're willing to listen to what might have changed that maybe you don't know about yet. So that's a wonderful side effect of wearing your CEO pants. And as you know, I love saying, ask better questions, get better answers. And in this case, it's a great librarian trick to wear your CEO pants. And it allows you to think differently and consider all the possible angles and options, which allows you to, hear better answers from the world, which tells you what to do about the workflow in your business. And then I also find that when we think about even just the physical act of putting on a nice pair of pants, when you think about that, it changes your mindset, right? It helps you develop an emotional readiness. And again, emotional readiness is one of those big, big pieces that helps us take action so that we're not stuck in this, manifestation place where all we're doing is thinking. We're not just manifesting, we're also putting action with that so that we can actually get some results. Your stretchy pants. Your CEO pants can be stretchy pants, by the way. I'm a big fan of that. All right, so this is the ultimate lesson today. We've gone through all of the woo-woo parts and the practical parts, and we got to our CEO pants. And the root message of this is know what you're investing in. So we're going to transform unconscious investments into intentional decisions. That is what we're aiming for. It is the number one thing that will help you reduce information overwhelm and help you grow your business better. It is the thing that takes you into that business gym and helps your muscles get really strong, really, really fast. So I encourage you to think about that again. When you're thinking about what you're investing in, how many of those things are unconscious investments? Can you turn those into intentional decisions this summer? That would be one of the most powerful things you could do for a summer workout at the business gym. And I guarantee you, by the time you get to fall, you're going to feel and be acting completely differently. You won't be reacting anymore. You'll just be taking action.